Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Pretty much this is the direct quote from Revelation 13 and 15, which Lord's what we're going to get into. And pretty much, this is based off of the speech that the Vice President J.D. Vance gave in Munich, addressing pretty much the whole European body, these different nations, including Germany. And pretty much, I listened to the speech. This particular speech here was like 19 minutes, about 19 minutes long, because you had the introduction at the beginning. And pretty much the whole time he was speaking, he was pretty much cursing out all these different European countries for not upholding the values of democracy and free speech. Which as I was listening to it, to the average mind, it seems like he was pretty much bigging up and being the champion for the rights of the populace or the population of the people. But really, as you go deeper into it, he's really, defending democracy, the democracy of America, because that's pretty much what it boils down to, because America has been an influence on the world through their democratic system and through their Americanization, as you will, and the sharing of the beliefs and principles of America worldwide, and they want everybody to accept that, and that's a part of their democracy. You had a meme years ago with a big bomber plane dropping bombs, and somebody put a meme on it, and it said, if you don't come to democracy, democracy will come to you. And pretty much this is America's way of strong arming these European nations, into accepting the values of America. Otherwise, you will be shut out. Let's go real quick to the book of Daniel. I want to share this precept with you for those of you who may not know. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 7. And Daniel chapter 7, in this particular verse we're dealing with, is which is the fourth beast, is dealing with the ancient Roman Empire, as well as it extends today into America. When you understand the breakdown of Daniel the 7th chapter. Just bear with me 1 second while I find this precept right here. Daniel 7 and 20. I'll start at 19. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. And when you go through the four beasts, you had the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire, you had the Medo-Persian Empire, you had the Greek Empire, and then you had the Roman Empire. All right, the fourth beast would be the Roman Empire. And America is an extension of the ancient Roman Empire. That's why they hold a lot, or the majority, or if not most, of the principles and laws and regulations of ancient Rome. It says which was diverse from all the others because of the way that they would set up their leaders, exceeding dreadful, right, because of their military, whose teeth were of iron. That's dealing with their weaponry, their military, and his nails of brass, same thing, which devoured, and that's exactly what they do, devoured, break in pieces. So if you don't come to democracy, democracy will come to you by force. Because one of the things the main thing that Esau was blessed with was the sword. And that's how they've been able to conquer the world and maintain that iron grip on the world. And stamp the residue with his feet, because the residue with his feet mean that they make sure that all of these nations follow behind the ways of the ancient Romans, just like they do with America. And there was another point that just escaped me. Lord's willing to come back. And stamp the residue with his feet. If it comes back, I'll bring it up. It says, but this is the main point down here. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, the 10 horns represent the EU, or the European Union. Used to be the EEC, the European Economic Community. All right. It says, and Elder Pastor did a video on this, uh, a couple of days ago, I think it was, with that whole speech, and he mentioned it in his lesson. It says, and of the other which came up, right? So it says, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, which is the European Union, and of the other which came up, and the other that came up is America. And before whom three fell, because the three that fell, when you look at the history of America, were the British, the Spanish, and the French, which had a stronghold of America. And that's why America is broken up into three parts. You have English, um, speaking or sounding um, names for these different cities and towns, and then you had French sounding ones and Spanish sounding ones. Even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things. And this, in this case, you have Trump that talks a lot of shit, but then you're in the case of America, right? J.D. Vance, the vice president, J.D. Vance was a representative, or is a representative of America, and he brought to that meeting in Europe, the American values. So he represented America in that speech, and that's a mouth that spake very great things, because pretty much what they were doing is they were scolding, these European nations for not, so-called upholding the principal values of democracy. And that's exactly what it is, and it's you either, get in line with the American way, or you get moved out of the way. And this is the other point. Whose look was more stout than his fellows, right? He looks down on these different nations, European nations, should I say, which are there is allies, and that's why those allies are going to turn against America and eventually destroy this place. When you look up this word stout, right? Stout, the word is rob, which is exalted. Stout, great, great, great captain, chief. All right, captain, chief, great lord, master. And this makes me think of Revelation 17, where it speaks about that great city which reigneth over the earth. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. So America looks down upon these European nations, which are allies, and they're supposed to all have equal say in what they, believe in. They set up the European Union as an economic basis, and pretty much the European Union along with America, right? They're supposed to all make, like in NATO, including NATO, they're all supposed to make decisions that are, beneficial for all. And if they're not beneficial to America, it won't go in place. If it's beneficial to America and not beneficial to the European nations, it'll still go in place, because America is the one really calling the shots, even though they'll say that everybody has the equal say in matters or in decisions. So Revelation 17:18, and the woman, which is that harlot, which is America, which is Babylon the Great. It's not talking about an actual woman. It's a metaphor, or symbolically speaking of a place, which is America. And the woman, which thou sawest, is that great city. America is a great city. And some people will say, well, how can America be a great city when it's a country? Well, a city is as big as its citizens. Anywhere you're born in America, you're known as an American citizen or U.S. citizen. All right. So the city is as big as its people. So this so-called country is really a giant city. And all of the people of America, no matter where they're born, whether they're born in Maine, whether they're born in California, whether they're born in Washington, or whether they're born in Florida or anywhere in between, they're all U.S. citizens. So this great city, the woman is a great city, which letting you know that it wasn't talking about an actual woman. It's talking about a place which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And America has the sway over all of the earth and these, in the decision making of these nations, especially the European nations. And pretty much America was playing the daddy through J.D. Vance on those European nations and pretty much cursing them out, scolding them. And that's why eventually, because the European nations are so-called European nations are pissed at America already, but they just keep digging that hole deeper and deeper because it's prophecy, and the Lord is using that to turn the heart of those nations against America. All right, because they found out they've been lied to. All right, so let's get back to this. Let's get back to this article, or let's get to this article. I put this in the description box. It says the origin of democracy from ancient Greece to modern governments. This is dated February 10th, 2025. Wasn't too long ago. Now, I'm just going to jump to here and jump around a little bit. The evolution of democracy has not been a linear process. Throughout history, democratic ideals have risen and fallen, influenced by war, social movements, technological advancements, and economic developments. And this is pretty much the core of it. And it's pretty much not the influence of the people, because when you break the word democracy down, demo is people and cracy is where you get the word cratic or crat, which is to rule. So the term democracy means rule by the people, but that's the outside or the appearance of what it is meant to be. But it's not, because it's really the international banking families that are the ones influencing everything in the decision making. That's why my Amshel Barrow, as we quote on a regular, says, "Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who writes his laws." Why? Because the person that controls the money controls whatever goes on in that government. All right, and it's influenced by war, social movements, technological advancements, and you see it today, even today. The greatest advancement of technology ever in the history, and economic developments, because everything falls back to the economy. You know, it says while some societies have embraced democracy wholeheartedly, others have struggled with its implementation or have seen it eroded by authoritarian tendencies. Right, like America. Despite these challenges, democracy continues to be a guiding principle for governance in many parts of the world today, demonstrating its resilience and universal appeal. Why? Because it's a method used for prophecy. Okay, so ancient Greece is where it came from. And if you know anything, ancient Greece, the timeline, which is they said the fifth century, which is 500 BC. If you go BC, it's backwards. If you go AD, right, or the Common Era, it goes forward. So in other words, in the AD era or the Common Era, if you say the 12th century, they're speaking about the 1100s. In BC terms, if you say the 5th century BC, you're talking about the 500s. All right, beginning with like 599 all the way down to 501 or 500. Okay, so it's backwards. It's a little confusing, but if you look into it, you'll get it. So it says the origins of democracy can be traced back to ancient Greece, and this particular form of democracy, the right way of doing democracy, goes back to the Japhites, the dark-skinned Japhites of so-called Europe. All right, because in the 4th century or 5th century, you had Japhites that were actually in charge. When you go back to the Etruscans, right, the Etruscans were Japhetic people, brown-skinned people who were conquered by the Edomites that call themselves Romans today. All right. And they had a set of rules and regulations. They had a monarchy, which America, let's start with ancient Rome, pretty much stole from them. They just took over their country and pretty much took over their laws and took over. Well, that's what Esau does. All right. It says the origins of democracy can be traced back to ancient Greece, particularly the city-state of Athens in the 5th century BCE. Athenian democracy was a direct democracy, meaning that citizens participated directly in decision making rather than electing representatives. Important features of Athenian democracy included the assembly, ecclesia, where you get the word church from, or call in. It says open to all male citizens. The assembly met regularly to discuss and vote on laws and policies. The council, Boule, a group of 500 citizens chosen by lot to oversee administrative functions and prepare legislation for the assembly. People's Court, the Casteria. Citizens served as jurors, ensuring legal disputes were resolved by the populace rather than a single ruler. So, as you see, everything that Esau has, everything that he does, is stolen and influenced by other civilizations. They are not the originators of anything, they are the takers of everything. That's why in Habakkuk it says that they gather to themselves all people. So they've gathered all the different ideals, the best ideals of all the nations, and pretty much amalgamated them into one. They pretty much, made a hodgepodge. They just put it all together. And this is why this place is known as Babylon the Great. It says Athenian democracy, or one of the reasons, Athenian democracy was deeply rooted in the idea of civic participation, or the participation of the people, where each eligible citizen had the right and duty to engage in political decision making. Right. And when Japhet had it, the dark skinned Japhets, we have to say it like that, they ruled how you're supposed to rule a democracy. Unlike modern representative democracy, see, because the modern way of doing it is really the ones behind the scene, or what they call an oligarchy, or the rule by few, how they want it, with the, illusion that the people have a say, where elected officials make decisions on behalf of the people. Athenian democracy, see, elected officials make. So it says that the modern representative of democracy are elected officials that make decisions on behalf of the people. This is why you have the electoral college, you know, and that's the way that they run this particular democracy, which is not the right way of running it. Athenian democracy required active and direct involvement from its citizens. This system promoted debate, encouraged accountability, and ensured that government decisions reflected the will of the people, at least within the limitations of its time. All right, so we're gonna skip some of this, and we're gonna just jump down to the Roman Republic and early influences. The Roman Republic, 509 BCE, which is when Japhet was ruling, and then Esau came in there around, I believe it was at one something, or was it? I know definitely 65. You have Pompey. Those are definitely Edomites, But I know they give the timeline of the Roman Republic. I believe it's 190 something like that. But I have to go back and check the dates. So it says incorporated democratic elements while maintaining a mixed government system that balanced democracy with aristocracy and monarchy. See, the Roman model included the Senate, a body of aristocrats that advised and influenced decision making, popular assemblies, institutions where citizens could vote on laws and elect magistrates, elected officials, consuls and tribunes, leaders who held executive power, with consuls overseeing military and governance and tribunes protecting the rights of the lower classes. While not a full democracy, the Roman Republic's blend of representative and direct governance influenced later democratic developments, such as America, particularly in structuring legislative and executive branches. And that's why today you have America, who has a government that has legislative and executive branches. There's three branches. It says the concept of elected officials and a system of checks and balances became a template for future democratic governments. It says additionally, Roman law played a critical role in shaping governance. The 12 tables, that's their first set of rules. Rome's earliest legal code emphasized the rule of law and equal treatment under legal statutes, principles that continue to influence modern democracies. These laws codified fundamental legal principles that extended beyond Rome and served as a foundation for Western legal traditions. See, and that's why America is influenced by the Roman way. And when the so-called founding fathers established America, they established it upon Roman principles. This is why all of your governmental buildings are in the shape, or the architecture of them are in the shape of the ancient Roman pillars, ancient Roman / Greek pillars. Salakia. Over time, the Roman legal system evolved, introducing more sophisticated concepts such as legal precedent, which allowed laws to be interpreted and adapted to new circumstances. A principle still applied in many judicial systems today. See, it says the Republic also introduced a system of checks and balances, preventing any single branch of government from becoming too powerful. And that's why you see Trump and J.D. Vance and that whole cabinet, stripping, the government, down the size, downsizing pretty much. This structure inspired modern democratic governments, particularly in how they distribute power among executive, legislative, and judicial bodies. And those are the three branches. The presence of elected officials, such as tribunes, who were specifically tasked with protecting the rights of the lower classes, reflected an early attempt of safeguarding political representation for marginalized groups through its, though it remained imperfect. It says, despite these advances, the Roman Republic ultimately fell to autocracy, which is self-rule. Political corruption, wealth disparities, which we see everything like this going on in America, and the increasing power of military generals led to erosion of democratic elements. Figures such as Julius Caesar capitalized on political instability, leading to the Republic's transition into the Roman Empire, which today you have a transition of America into the American Empire. This shift highlighted one of the key vulnerabilities of the democratic systems. Without strong institutional safeguards and civic engagement, democracy can give way to authoritarian rule. And that's why the people have the right, if the government becomes corrupt, there are laws that state that they can take up arms against the government and take them down. I'm not an expert in the Constitution and all the laws, but there are provisions in there that they have the right to overthrow the government if the government becomes corrupt. It says, however, many of the governing principles established during the Roman Republic lived on, influencing later democratic works, which we see in America today, including those of the United States and various European parliamentary systems. Why? Because these so-called European parliamentary systems were nothing more than those ancient allies of Rome, which today are the modern allies of America. Okay, we're going to skip this part here. We're going to jump down to modern era, and then we're going to hit some precepts. And the Lord's will, this is edifying. The modern era of democracy has seen significant expansion, transformation, and challenges. The 20th and 21st centuries have been marked by the proliferation of democratic governments worldwide, driven by decolonization, global conflicts, and increasing demands for human rights and political representation. Following World War II, institutions such as the United Nations and the spread of liberal democratic ideals helped establish and reinforce democratic governance in many nations. Why? Because this is the image of the beast. This is a part of that image. The part of the image is pushing the core values of America on the world, which goes back to the Roman way. Because when you look at the core principles of America, dealing with their governance, their legislative body, their judicial system, and all of that, it all goes back to the ancient Roman Empire. And they're using that as a branch to all these different nations. And if the nations play along with America's form of democracy, then they're good. If not, then they suffer the repercussions. It says the Cold War further influenced democratic expansion as Western nations sought to promote democracy in opposition to communist regimes. Technological advancements, here we go, have also played a critical role in shaping modern democracy, right? And today you see that, for the first time, you have these technocrats, so to speak, involved in higher offices in government. You know, you can't make it up. The rise of the internet and social media has provided new platforms for political participation. That's why you see these different, you know, uh, positions in government coming up, like Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, activism, and discourse. However, these tools have also introduced challenges such as misinformation, political polarization, and foreign interference in elections. The digital age has increased transparency and civic engagement while simultaneously testing the resilience of democratic institutions against cyber threats and propaganda. Despite the progress, democracy in the modern era faces numerous challenges, populism, blah, 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 blah. So we get the point. No conclusion. From its origins in ancient Greece to its modern manifestations, democracy has continually evolved to reflect the needs and aspirations of societies. While it has faced obstacles and undergone transformations, the core principle of governance by the people remains central to its success. And that's just the facade. People don't really run things. It's the international bankers behind the scenes with the illusion that the people make a difference. As democratic systems face new global challenges, the lesson from history provides valuable insights into preserving and strengthening this foundational political ideal. So like I said, if I put this in the description box, we read most of it. You can go back and read it again if you would like. But when I heard this, which also put this in the description box. When I heard this speech, pretty much that's what I was getting out of it. America is like the father or the mother scolding the children, and that's pretty much what he was doing. He was scolding the so-called Europeans for not, so-called allowing the rights of the citizens and for penalizing citizens for using their freedom of speech and freedom of religion to do as they were allowed to do. But really, what I saw behind the scenes of that is that, you have to follow the policies of America, the democracy of America, because he kept mentioning about democracy. And if you don't follow behind the democracy of America, you stand the chance to be alienated or pushed out of the picture. So when we go to Revelation 13:11, matter of fact, I'm going to read the 15th verse and then we'll jump back up to 11. When you read Revelation 13, it's dealing with the different empires of Esau, but it mainly focuses on the ancient Roman Empire and the modern Roman Empire. The ancient Roman Empire is just that, Rome. The modern Roman Empire is America. This is the reincarnation of ancient Rome. And this is why America is, you could say, the capital of all of these so-called European nations. All right, they're the ones that hold sway in decision making, which they get their marching orders from the mouth, which is the Rothschilds over there in England. But America is like the patsy. They're like the guy that you put in the forefront that make them think that he has the power, but really behind the scenes, their strings are being pulled. That's why Elon Musk's little son Trump. He said, "Shut up! You're not the president." Revelation 13:15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. So how do you give power to give life to the image of the beast? And what is the image of the beast? The image of the beast pretty much is the whole Roman system, all right, with their democracy and their form of governance. And how do you give it life? By America pushing those same core values and principles, laws, and statutes here in America. And the life of it would be democracy, and its speaking would be them enacting and pushing their agenda forward. right? It says that the image of the beast should both speak. And how is it speaking? By it being put into action. So not only are they sharing the values and the legislative body of Rome, but it actually is put into action here in America because they're pushing those same values, those same laws, those same regulations and legislations, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast or bow down to them should be killed, meaning they'd be excommunicated, pushed out of the way. So you could kill somebody physically, but in this case, it's talking about alienating them, pushing them off to the side. And these so-called European nations have been riding on America's side for a long time, and they've been getting the short end of the stick every time, and they're getting tired of it. And pretty much this was like almost like one of the last straws. Here it is, you going down there, people clapping for you because they think you're going to give them a good speech and fair words, and you pretty much getting down on them, cursing them out indirectly because they're not following the American way. When you look, behind, when you look through the words that he's using for in the so-called ben, what's the word I'm looking for? Benefit, I guess, for lack of better words, or interest of the so-called European people, the common people. It's all about the American democracy. America doesn't give a fuck about nobody else but themselves. So when we jump up to the 11th verse, it says, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, right? And this beast is the same beast that fell. When you read from the first verse down, the beast had a wound, a deadly wound. And it seemed like it was dying, and it did die for a certain period of time, but it came back to life. And how did it come back to life? When did it come back to life? During the time of the Renaissance, and it came back to life really fully through America. It says, and he had two horns like a lamb. That's your bipartisan system or your two-party system. That's your Republicans and Democrats. And he spake as a dragon. That goes into the legislation of America, which is the same as the legislation from Rome. And Rome got a lot of their core principles and certain legislations from ancient Greece. This is why you have a term known as draconian law, which goes back to an Athenian lawgiver named Draco. You see? So it all ties together. And he exercises or puts into effect or into motion all the power of the first beast before him. So who was the first beast before him? The ancient Roman Empire. And you can see that all of the principles of America reflect back to ancient Rome. That's why in school you will learn Roman numerals. That's why on the back of your dollar bill you have Roman numerals and Latin writing. America has nothing to do with Latin or Roman numerals. That goes back to ancient Rome. Your legislative body, if you want to become a lawyer or a judge or anything, you have to know Latin terms in law. You see? So America is a reflection of ancient Rome and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, which is who? Rome, whose deadly wound was healed during the time of the Renaissance period. That's when they came back to life or started to come back to life. And they fully got their claws in the earth through America. All right. It says, and he doeth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. You see that when they drop bombs at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and then the different times when they've bombed different places, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Right. Because one of the great blessings of America, besides the sword, is deception, or Esau, should I say, in general, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. And what is the image to the beast? This is the Roman Empire. This is democracy, your democracy, which had a wound by a sword and did live, right? Because they came back to life through America. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right? Because you could kill somebody physically, or you could kill them, by alienating them. And that's pretty much what it's talking about, an alienation. because the word here is apoktino, which apo is through or send, depending on how you use it, and in tino is to slay, through slaying, right? You could kill in any way or matter, right? Destroy, to allow to perish, or metaphorically to extinguish, see, abolish. And pretty much how would you do that? By alienating someone, and you alienate them, and they're not able to partake of the benefits of everybody else, so they're left to themselves. See, to inflict, you could inflict mortal death or just alienate someone and kill them that way. All right, so that's what's happening. And these European nations are getting tired and fed up with the bullshit. So J.D. Vance going over here to Europe, so-called Europe, over there in Munich, giving this speech, he was the mouth or the representative of America that was pushing the American policies on these people and pretty much scolding them. When you watch it, when you watch the speech, and you listen to the speech, and you look behind the scenes or behind the words that he's really using to see what he's really saying, right? Daniel chapter 7:7, it says, and after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, the fourth beast. This fourth beast represents the Roman Empire, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, because of what? Their military might, their power, their strategy. It had great iron teeth, that represents their weaponry. It devoured and break in pieces, that's their military might, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, right? Because they pushed their core valuables and principles on the people, including their democracy. And they made the people tributary. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it in the way that they would set up their leaders. And it had 10 horns, which back then the 10 horns were the European Union of their time, of the ancient world. All right. And they had ancient names for those European Union, or the European, so-called European nations, such as the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths and the Sueves and the Vandals and the Lombards, so on and so forth. So now, as you see the 10 horns, or the ancient European, so-called European allies of Rome, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. This little horn, a horn represents power. America started little. It had 13 colonies. They were insignificant at one time. But look at the empire and the power that they've amassed over the years, from that period to now, and how they've influenced the world, and how they pretty much have an iron grip on the world today. It says, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked by the roots, right? And by the roots, why? Because the core of America at one time was held, or the land of America was held by either the British, the French, or the Spanish. And when America came here, they rooted them out. You see, so they plucked those three out from the root. It says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. And this is the mouth speaking great things. They're pushing their values, their principles, their ideals, all around the world. And if you don't partake, you get pushed out the way. So J.D. Vance, the vice president, sitting there in Munich, giving this speech, he was pretty much scolding them. And this is a part of that great mouth speaking great things. And he was scolding them because they weren't following the blueprint of the image of the beast. You see? And if they don't get their act together, in so many words, they're going to be pushed out of the way. But these devils, you can't listen to how they say things. You got to listen to what they're saying, and what the intentions behind the words that they're saying are, because they never speak straight up. Let's go to Psalms 55. Psalms 55. And let's start at 19. It says, the Most High shall hear and afflict them, even he that abideth of old, Selah, because they have no changes, therefore they fear not the Most High. Right? And Esau doesn't fear the Lord. You know, they're not built like that. You know, they're set as an opposition. They're set as, you know, those that would challenge and oppose the Most High. But that's all right because the Most High is going to kick them in the ass. They were set up like that. They're the vessel path fitted to destruction. He has put forth his hand against us as peace with him, right? Because he puts, you know, they got the European Union, they got NATO, all these different United Nations. I mean, they got all this to come to an agreement to of peace between each other, but they're constantly, you know, slapping these allies in the face constantly. He's broken his covenant, right? Because they don't uphold. It's not about, you know, it's about them getting the desired effect of American superiority. Everybody else in their boot. And these nations are getting tired of these, especially the so-called European nations. The words of his mouth were smooth butter, but war was in his heart. His was softer than oil, yet with the drawn swords. And when his speech sounds like he's, you know, being there, you know, he's holding them, but he's, you know, making it seem like he's all for the care and support of the average so-called European citizen, but it's not. He's pretty much cursing them out because they're uh, veering off the path of the Western or American democracy, all right, which is the image of the beast or part of the image of the beast. You know, so with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.